Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special conversation today about the UK government's request for evidence about digital currencies. About a month ago, I was sent an email from Caroline Kenny at the Treasury in the UK to ask if I would submit some evidence to the UK government so that they could make up their minds about what to do about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Now, back in August, they already published a paper on digital currencies. It was essentially just, oh, hang on, where is it? Here it is. The link is in the description below, by the way. And it essentially laid out, I can't open it up in Firefox, but it basically laid out what the cryptocurrencies are, what their potential impact could be, and it also compared them to existing private currencies that we've already got. And since then, they've then come back again with a whole series of questions. Now, when I was interviewed for the first paper, I made it quite clear that actually the currency aspect of Bitcoin wasn't the most interesting aspect of all. The most interesting aspect about these blockchain cryptocurrencies was the fact that they were distributed databases, that they were a category different from the traditional model of databasing, where you've got somebody with a root password who can change entries on a whim just because they've got the privileges, to a type of database that everyone co-owns across space and time, independently of their ethnicity, independently of where they're from, what their beliefs are, because fundamentally computers don't have the capacity to discriminate against people, because computers are subject to natural laws, and as a result they don't have the capacity to care or not care. Have you got the private key? Does that private key have the ability to produce a signature on this address, on this Bitcoin wallet? Yes or no? That's it. That's all the computer cares about. And as a result, it completely disrupts the model of banking and government, which I take today in this discussion as my assumption that these institutions are really in the business of holding secrets. Governments and banks are in the business of holding secrets. It's about holding back information from the public, allowing certain information to get through such that you can control the beliefs within that society. And if you control the beliefs within any kind of system and society, you control the behaviors, because if you can see the inputs, you know roughly what the outputs are going to be. You know where people are going to be able to go. So that was my operating assumption, and my recommendation to them back when I was originally interviewed was that you should start from that basis. You shouldn't start from the basis of currency alone, because that's just one aspect of it. So all the links, and in fact the full questions, are down in the description below, and today I am joined by Jamie Nelson.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. And I'm joined by Shem.
Hey.
How you doing, man?
I'm alright. It's a beautiful day, baby.
Thanks for calling this, actually, because we were on Twitter earlier on. We were talking about this. I haven't been on the World Crypto Network for a while, and you were like, let's do it, let's do it.
Yeah. So, guys, I mean, we've got the questions and stuff, and I hope anyone that's listening or watching this cast today or recorded, what we want to do is have a real roundtable discussion on what the government should be doing about Bitcoin as the implementation of it. And I think, Chris, you very well explained and come in there and took us off your to the thread of how you feel about red brick institutions or corporations in regards to this kind of thing. So I suppose I want to kind of add to that and augment that and open the question up for the panel today. Jamie, just quickly, your thoughts on because we're all as all individually I can imagine we share the principles of a bit of we don't quite trust the idea of this, and you guys take it away and just open that up for us.
Well, I was just going to, so first of all, let's introduce Theo. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, thanks. How's it going? And any MPs that are watching live, like to greet you, and if you didn't catch my tweet, then I'd hope that you take a look at this afterwards. And this is a totally free consultation live on the internet with global experts, and you'll never get this anywhere else.
This is the real deal. You're gonna have to take a good seat today. Take a roll of toilet roll and pay attention. We're gonna dive in deep. We're gonna dive in hard. But I think we all feel quite passionate about this, and often, if they're asking, and they're really asking, how can we do this better for government? How can we use the blockchain or the Bitcoin? And how is it going to augment our current systems? Well, today that's what we're here to talk about, and I think let's just say it's going to rock their world, and the question is how much are they going to allow it to rock the world and go with the sway, or as many industries sometimes do with innovation, fight against it? And I think that's one of the things that I want us to cover. But Chris, can you kind of run us through some of the questions just to kind of
Yeah,
put some context?
that's probably the best way to start. So first of all, let's take a look at the purpose of this. So the purpose is that the UK government is noticing that there is a global attention span that is shifting towards looking and asking the question of what is Bitcoin, how is it different to the kind of private digital currencies that we've seen in the past, and what should we do about it? And one of the reasons I would like to speculate that the reason a lot of these international governments have been very hesitant and a bit clumsy in the way that they've been treating Bitcoin is they don't want to act too soon. Everyone is up on 2 feet, they're waiting to go in either direction, and they're waiting to see what other people do first because they don't want to commit themselves to anything too soon. So I think from a political point of view, I think the government has played it safe. They've been sitting back, waiting for other people to make the first move, and then just slowly, here they come. Now they're looking for an opportunity. They don't want to be caught on the back foot. Governments are not stupid. I think it is fair to say that throughout history, governments have not been famous for innovating. On the contrary, they're usually there to maintain the status quo. When you often get elected into government, or if you even run for government in the first place, it's either because you want to change things, or it's because you want to keep an eye on the system because you have some kind of vested interest. Maybe you inherited some land, or you've got some kind of power play.
So our tips. Wait, hold on. And so our tips today, that if you're a member of government or business and you're listening to this thing today, and you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, is this going to change our system? Is this? Yes, but the blockchain technology, Bitcoin, is going to change, and we want you to be brave, and we want you to be an innovator, and like those who have gone before throughout history that have looked at the potential and seen the potential of benefits for our society, for each other, and we want you to jump on board. And yes, you're right, they've been too slow, and yes, you're right, Chris, they've been very cautious. Often we find this in business, and particularly in government organisations, that they really tiptoe. They're not very movable as organisations. They're not quick.
Well, they're not supposed to be. That's the whole point. The point I'm making is you don't want a society where everyone's going off innovating simultaneously, because then you're just going to end up with chaos. So the underlying assumption of a government, I think, is that they want to maintain some kind of regulation on the flow of change. They don't want things to change too quickly.
With that in context, gentlemen, let us start this. What are the benefits of digital currencies? Question one, how significant are these benefits, and how do these benefits fall into different groups, so consumer and business?
Right, so let's just run through a couple of questions so we can get a gist for what they're trying to get at. Question one, what are the benefits of digital currencies? How significant are these benefits? How do these benefits fall to different groups, e.g. consumers, businesses, government, the wider economy? How do these benefits vary according to the different digital currencies? Question two, actually, that's quite a few questions in one. Question two, should the government intervene to support the development and usage of digital currencies and related businesses and technologies in the UK, or maintain the status quo? If the government were to intervene, what action should it take? Question three, if the government were to regulate digital currencies, which types of digital currency should be covered? Should it create bespoke regulatory regime, or regulate through an existing national, European, or international regime? For each option, what are the advantages and disadvantages? What are the possible unintended consequences? For instance, creating a barrier to entry due to compliance costs. Well, that's quite cognizant of them. I'm glad that they're recognizing that. Question four, are there currency barriers to digital currency businesses setting up in the UK? If so, what are they? And now, so those are the first four questions, and this is related to the benefits of digital currencies. Remember that a lot of this is couched in terms of frictionless payments. It's couched in terms of middlemen fees. But like I said at the top of the show, I think it's worth bearing in mind that the currency is just one aspect of this. And then what they're not thinking about is they're not thinking about digital notaries, people putting their wills on the blockchain. They're not thinking about people putting contracts and smart contracts in the blockchain. And as a result, if they don't take full stock of what this is, they're going to be playing catch up for the next few years, because they're spending months and months in committee meetings drafting up legislation that will take a year to get pushed through. You've got an election next year as well, which I think is partly what's motivating them to do this, because they want to look relevant, they want to look like they're on message and they're saying the right things. So guys, with those four questions in mind and everything,
how the hell are they going to tax your diary, Chris, that you've been putting on the blockchain? I mean, that's Bitcoin.
Well, this is the thing, guys. This is obviously one of the home truths. You know, that is going to be very hard to taxate Bitcoin, and yeah, it's going to be difficult. And this is the thing, is sometimes a lot of people
they just look at it as another currency form, as if we were switching to the gold standard or we were switching to the silver standard, or they're framing everything in the framework of currency and money, and they don't understand that. And that's the point Chris has been trying to get across, I think, and I've been trying to get across. Just because one aspect of it is currency doesn't mean that's the only aspect of it. It's like if I smash a nail into a board with a cell phone, it doesn't make my cell phone a hammer. I mean,
yeah.
Now, are they going to start regulating my cell phone as a hammer because I used it once to smash a nail into a board? I mean, but that's not the only thing it can do. I mean, I can make phone calls, I can, look on the internet with it, but let's just regulate it as a hammer because he used it to smash a nail into a board. That's kind of the aspect I see governments looking at Bitcoin as right now.
Yeah, I really like hammers too, and I've talked about them in the past. But I think that besides hammers, there's one really big aspect that we've all just kind of jumped over, or at least through reading the questions we've jumped over, and that's simply about the control of the private keys and what that means. That means that the people are responsible for the upkeep and the safety of these private keys, and no longer do you store your money in a bank that needs a physical violence, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it, kind of armory, a vault, etc., to save the things. It's another discussion if there's really anything in there and if we're all just playing around with ones and zeros. But nonetheless, you trust a bank to hold your funds in the end for security. It's a centralized system, right? And this is a big shift in responsibility. So the government is like, okay, well, what's our part in there? Well, you don't really have a part in there. And they're like, oh shit, well, what do we do? What is our job supposed to be? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? So I think that's kind of what they're kind of like, wait a minute, what does this mean? That means that the people are in total control of their funds, and we can't censor them, and we can't do a kind of Cyprus situation where we just say, okay, everyone that has 10,000 pounds or whatever will take 5% from you because we're bankrupt right now. So I think that that's a really situation that they haven't really got their heads around, and a lot of people just skip over that part. But I think that's a really important part, and I think that's a lot of what gives Bitcoin value.
Yeah, in fact, actually, question 5 does get into the distributed ledger, but only very briefly. But before I say that, one of the reasons that we did this video at all was because Shem and I were having a conversation on Twitter the other day, and Shem was saying, you were saying that like I should get in there and start answering these questions, but my sort of response at the time, I was quite curmudgeonly. I was just a bit like, look, I've done this already. I've been talking to them. I didn't feel like I was listened to the last time. And also, I think they already know what this is. They're not stupid. The Bank of England published a report earlier this year at about the same time that other report came out, which showed them to be very well versed in what this technology was capable of, what it could do. It was a distributed ledger. They used all the right terminology. I don't think they need any help in understanding what Bitcoin is. I think they want to learn about us. I think they want to know what I think it is. I think they want to know what I think that they should do about it, so that they can start to build up a profile. Well, they get PR boost because they get to look, like I say, they get to look relevant. There's lots of good SEO terms on that web page that we just showed you. It says things about technology, innovation. You know, it's all about saying jobs. The jobs are coming back. This is the new industry. We've got this, guys. We're on the right side of this curve. Okay, other countries are going to be left, you know, trailing behind because we know how important the tech sector is. But fundamentally, and this has been said before, tech entrepreneurs, particularly tech entrepreneurs, aren't interested in creating jobs. As a technical entrepreneur, you're there to automate the jobs, right? You're there to actually put it all into code and eliminate those jobs. So actually, you're going to be running contrary to the government's agenda. But that doesn't matter for now, particularly if there's an election coming up in about 8 or 9 months, because all you need to do as a politician is get your head through that sort of election process. Once you've been elected, you've got another 4.5 years to think about it anyway, and so you can't be unelected. And so if you've got these long latency periods of election cycles where you're getting elected for 4 to 5 years at a time, then you don't really need to worry about the long term. You can kick all the hard problems down the road to your successors, and you can pretty much blame them, because it's always like when they get into government, the first thing they do is they blame the last government for the mess that they made.
Well, yeah, but I think what's happening is that they know, and that this is a wave that's going to affect them. This is early days of the internet, almost, when people were starting to pick up that the world's changing. I mean, obviously, Bitcoin and smart money in general, or blockchain technology, has clearly got a myriad of benefits. You know, we all agree on that, and and I don't think probably, as you rightly say, the government realised that, probably starting to pick up on it, and we're only just starting to kind of scratch the surface of that implementation, be it voting or contract stocks, the lending, real estate thing. But I think that we've got to go back to, and they've got to be really mindful that the benefits derived from distributed cryptographically, secure ledger technology, basically, it's a significant improvement and natural progression. And you mentioned about databases, data storage, and ownership. I think once they understand that the blockchain technology, the revolution it can bring with those kinds of things, and the ease of use, it's not necessarily about losing jobs. There's probably billions of pounds worth of economic potential from the government playing it right with, and this is the early days of the internet, isn't it? Almost again, obviously. The government needs to create a safe business ecosystem for it, for the Bitcoin use and storage, and I only hope that any decision makers, understand that there's no centralized banking group or mainstream service offering services, and Bitcoin has kind of existed and grown without any government help, and now it's arriving on their shores. I think that's what this is really about. It's arriving on their shores, and obviously they look at it from a security, there's drug guys, there's pedophiles using it, that's the first front end of the web, and as such it's kind of got a Badlands image. But if the government could start at least creating a UK bank or stock option at the very least, to kind of give business and consumers a kind of safe place to hold or trade or apply stock bond based usage within a legal framework, I think that would be brilliant, and that would put London and the UK at the very forefront of the Bitcoin technological revolution that's happening right now.
Yeah, you make a good point. I love the way you're comparing it to the weather, because it's exactly like the weather. They don't have control over this, and this isn't some optional thing that the governments get to choose whether or not Bitcoin comes into existence or not. They don't have a choice. This is the momentum. The momentum is now caught hold. It's not going to go back. And I think what the government needs from us is they need, as experts in this field, is to sit down with them and tell them how this is going to go. Because they either sort of let this go smoothly and peacefully, and they say, okay, I get it, time's up. The fate is knocking on the door, and it's telling you that you've had your day now. The aristocracy has had their day. Now you need to step aside and let people take self-ownership for their own lives, because like Theo was saying, you now get the private keys to your wallet. That is a category different to the way we've run things in before. And I think consumers are going to have to wake up. A lot of public, I mean, Jamie and I have been talking about the tyranny of the majority on Twitter. We've been having a long conversation over the last few weeks about it, haven't we? And the fact is that a lot of people expect that if their bank gets hacked or somebody takes their credit card, that they're going to get compensated for that. And what does that do? Well, it props up an insurance industry, a massive bloated insurance industry that charges fees that everyone ends up paying for because businesses pass those fees on. So oftentimes, the reason why you're able to call up your credit card company and say, I didn't pay for that, and that's called a chargeback, is because the credit card company will turn to the insurer who will pay for that coverage. But where does that get paid for? Well, that gets paid for from the merchant side, because what the credit card companies do is they charge the businesses more money to use their hardware. So when they buy those machines, the chip and pin machines, they charge them for the machine, and then they charge them fees on every single transaction. So all that's happening is, if you've got what's called the negotiating, you've got the controlling interest in the negotiation, that's how lawyers tend to term it. If you've got the controlling interest in a negotiation, then no rise in prices is going to affect you, because you can just pass them on to someone else because you've got the power to. So when you're entering into an agreement as a merchant, as an entrepreneur, remember the entrepreneurs are the people that provide the value, the people that create the jobs. You have to go to Visa and say, can I get a credit card machine? Visa and Barclays then turn around to you and say, well, yeah, but you have to take a minimum of £100 a day, and you're going to pay 2.5% on every transaction. And if we get too many chargebacks from your business, we're going to up those fees. And we're not going to pay you for a month, right? You're going to get sort of net 30 terms, which means you don't get paid net for 30 days. And if any chargebacks happen in that time, they automatically take the money out. You don't even get a say. All the other customer has to do is phone up.
And the customer's got to pay 30%.
Yeah, but this is what we're talking about.
So they pass.
I mean, wait, guys, but this is what we're talking about. That these ministers and these governments and businesses got to know that this new technology is going to make some of the businesses obsolete that were king before. So Visa, your Mastercard, they're not going to have such an easy day no more. And again, it's like oil and sustainable energy, isn't it? Oil guys don't want to get their business ruined. The solar panel guys, do, and it's such a shame. And any person in any power would do the right thing, because you'd be thinking of the children of tomorrow, you'd be thinking of the planet, you'd be thinking your own conscience.
Well, look what's happening with the oil industry right now. Oil is down at like $68 a barrel right now because there's competition in the market, and we're getting oil cheap because the sham of the shortage is over, and they're pumping oil out like crazy, and there's an overabundance of oil on the market, and now it's making it unfeasible for renewable energy because it's just way too cost prohibitive. So the smart thing that the oil industry is doing is overproducing, cutting their costs, taking a short-term loss. If they're even taking a loss, I don't know that they are, but they're economically wise, and to protect their own business, it's a smart move because they're ensuring their sustainability by offering a cheaper product and cutting out the innovators of renewable energy, because it's just way too cost prohibitive to put up solar panels or wind towers and things like that.
Yeah, but what's happening now, guys? You're right, Jimmy. And what's happening now? We've got I think it's $1. The price of barrel of oil compared to solar panel kilowatt or whatever. It's nearly got to the stage, and they're having to overproduce to keep the price. And there's all this kind of price manipulation of the oil. And why is it? Because they won't just go, do you know what, fuck it, guys, let's invest in a new company that's solar panel and stop fighting the tide of innovation.
But only if they get a free ticket in. So the way it works is, what they're really saying is...
No, I'm not asking for an explanation how it works, because today we're here to talk about what is the right thing to do, because obviously we all agree that that's one of the problems, that a lot of governments or business organisations prevent that technological innovation progressing because it destabilizes their own system.
I don't think they do. I think that they will let you do it if they can get a cut. If they can become parasitical on the new paradigm, then I think they'll let it go through. But that's what we're seeing in a lot of these tech hubs.
Theo.
Is that wrong? Go ahead.
No, I don't want to get too off the subject, but okay, basically what's going to happen is because people have more control and the distributed ledger and all that stuff, people are going to start asking questions. But wait a minute, where does money come from now? And how is that created? Wait a minute. How? I thought that the bank, you lend them money, a deposit, and then they go to the vault and they take that cash out and they give it to someone else, right? I mean, that's like when you're a kid or whatever.
Fractional reserve banking.
Yeah, basically. That's a really cool term. But people are not really getting that. So what I've got, I'm going to attempt to do a screen share of a PDF document, which I think I've never done. But it should work, right? Damn it. It's not working. Okay, well, anyway, I'm going to read it out loud. And it's from the Bank of England. And I think all the MPs need to read it because they might not have. And what it is the first quarter report from the Bank of England. And I think everyone needs to read it because it's really interesting. What it says, I'm just going to read a short part of it, all right? And it's on page 2 of the PDF. It's very easy to find. It says, in fact, when households choose to save more money in bank accounts, those deposits come simply at the expense of deposits that would have otherwise gone to companies in payment for goods and services. Saving does not by itself increase the deposits or funds available for banks to lend. Okay. Indeed, viewing banks simply as intermediaries ignores the fact that in reality, in the modern economy, commercial banks are the creators of deposit money. This article explains how, rather than banks lending out deposits that are placed with them, the act of lending creates deposits, the reverse sequence typically described in textbooks. The reverse of the sequence typically described in textbooks. I mean, it sounds crazy, but the Bank of England is saying this, and how is that related to Bitcoin? Bitcoin doesn't operate like that. Bitcoin is a basically, right now the Bank of England has a monopoly on all of that stuff, right? And that will change that. That changes that flips that all around in a totally different thing, and just the simple existence of Bitcoin is going to get people thinking about why are we in this system? Why are we accepting that? And why is the reality the exact reverse of what's in every textbook?
Absolutely, Theo, and that's why any MPs or decision makers out there, what Theo means is that this new monetary technology, Bitcoin, doesn't involve the traditional banking system of money creation as before. It's completely different. In fact, you can't affect it, Mr. Banker, and your friends in Lloyd's or whoever, they ain't going to be able to print no more.
So an advantage.
And if you want to create Bitcoins, you need a bunch of these. Or bigger machines to do it.
And join the fucking queue, yeah.
So look, and also now to get around a benefit. So here I have a nice graph that I found that Bernard, a guy named Bernard that's really smart. He showed exactly. I want to give him big credit because I think he probably designed this graph. And I'm going to do my best. I mean, I'm not on his level of thinking and all that, but let's just take a look. Okay, so follow me here. Basically, the current system is around here. So it has a lot of efficiency. For example, let's be honest, guys. If you use a credit card, it's faster than Bitcoin. Why? Because it's way over here. You see what I mean? It's right over here. It's over here, excuse me, greater efficiency this way. It's way over here, but there's too little diversity, and it's going to...
What happens to Theo?
We lost you, Theo. But I think what he's trying to say is...
we go like this. Look, we're going in a circle like this. Do you see that little thing on my screen? Okay, so we get like very efficient, and then more resilient. For those of you that want to use another word, resilient is kind of like strong or stable, kind of. And it goes up, and then it goes down, and then it fails, and then you put it back up, and we just keep going in a circle over here, right? Well, Bitcoin is more like way over here right now. It's very resilient, yeah. It's not as efficient in that it's not as fast because it's decentralized, it's distributed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the advantage is that it's very resilient. So Bernard said something which I really like. He was said, to put it in layman's terms, when in your car, and since we're talking about UK, in the boot, I imagine you've got a spare tire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's an extremely inefficient system to have a spare tire in your car.
What's that?
Heavy. It's a very inefficient system to have a spare tire in your car. It's heavy. You drive with it around. It wastes gas. It's just sitting there most of the time. You may never even use it.
Yeah.
You're simply wasting gasoline by driving around with a spare. But you do it. Why? Because it works. It's extremely resilient to all of the situations. So I'm not saying that Bitcoin is like a spare tire, but I'm saying that we need to get away from just wanting pure efficiency. That's only one thing about what we want. And if we had a more resilient system, then there wouldn't be all these cycles of failures over and over and over. And then
Theo, what you're saying is that you're saying that by us, if a government was to use a peer-to-peer monetary system like Bitcoin, that it would be a lot more resilient than having to constantly quantitatively ease and things like that.
Exactly. And not saying that it could happen overnight or it would be really easy, and there's a lot more details to talk about. However, it would be a lot more resilient, and you wouldn't be able to just print money or like the banks do now either. It would be a lot different.
Yeah,
well,
it's backed by the energy, because it costs energy. Like sorry, like Jamie was saying, sorry, I'm a moment blank. Like Jamie was saying, when he's holding up that miner, you've got opportunity cost and you've got your electricity bill to pay for when you're mining Bitcoins, and everyone is subject to the resource availability of the planet. No one gets to live outside of that constraint.
So, Mr. Government person out there listening to this today, you know, Bitcoin's cost to make. They don't just come out of thin air and you mine them on your computer. You're saying there's an ecological and that's why one of the problems. But guys, what about this implementation? Going back to the benefits of this, if a government was to really capitalize on what's occurring right now, this is the start of the internet. Imagine if a country had finally, you know, got right on the internet back on the days. Where are we at with this if a government's to play right?
Well, let's pick up a point that Isaac Francis is making in the Q&A. So you can get your questions in bottom left-hand corner of this video, have your say. And he's saying, he's asking the question, are you assuming that it was not a government or collective governments that sent out the blockchain technology to us all, and that they already know how it will be used in the future? And also, they're just watching in amusement while we debate the blockchain's future. Well, I don't think I am assuming that. I see why you're asking the question, though, because remember what I said in the introduction was I think they already know damn well what this is, and these questions are not designed for them to learn about it. It's designed to learn about us and what we think of it. That's why the questions are phrased in the way of
no.
do.
I don't believe that true. I believe they're genuinely asking because it's finally turned up to their shores. It's like the Aztecs with the Spanish landing at the shores. Because we all know that when it finally affects someone, they're going to take notice. We're at the stage where they cannot ignore it. There's people people are doing drugs as far as they're concerned. There's people buying drugs online with this money where they don't need our money. You know, they are asking us how can they manage it? How can this be used? What's the benefits? And this show isn't to contest whether that is to be so or whether that's not true. This show is to talk about how governments can use it. What's the right way to go forward? We've already talking about how the blockchain's different from current, fractional reserve bank, and we've talked about how if a government was to go into Bitcoin, that there's a myriad of uses for it. Now we're at the stage in the conversation where we're talking about yes, there are going to be wanting to control it. Jamie, you said something earlier about this. Please comment on this.
Well, I would prefer that they didn't do anything with it. Of course, I don't live in the UK, so it doesn't matter to me what the UK does with it. But the idea that you regulate something as only one part of what it's capable of doing is ludicrous. And
so what should they do, Jamie? What should they do?
What they should do is what I'd like them to do and what they will do, I don't know, are two different things, because I would like them to just ignore it. What they will likely do is whatever is the best that they can to try and get their cut. Everything was boiled down to how they can get their cut, their taxes. They want their VIG. It's the same thing as mafia protection money in my book.
Yeah, but don't we all agree that because of this new technology, that those old rules don't apply with this new tech?
Well, it
Guys?
depends, because remember what they're going to do is they're going to feed a different line to the public. So the public aren't following this very closely. So what I was saying earlier, I want to finish my point from earlier. When you go to these hackathons that are being sponsored by Barclays and Virgin and all these big corporates, the first thing they get the developers to do is they say, right, I want the blockchain, but I want the Barclays logo on it. Can you make like a Barclays coin? And maybe instead of giving every user like a private key, can they come through us and we keep the key? And then, like, rather than it being like a public ledger, could it kind of be like a private ledger? And so what they do is they take all of the benefits of the blockchain technology and then they bury those, and then they only keep like the stuff that benefits them, and then what they do is a massive advertising campaign to the general public who already have brand awareness.
Branding and
concision, and they say to the public, look, it's just as good as Bitcoin, but no volatility now. And they don't explain any of the downsides. They just say it's legal, it's regulated, you don't have to worry about like looking bad, and you're not going to get arrested for using it, so it's legit. And the public who aren't necessarily paying attention, because remember, everyone has discretionary attention. The whole internet economy runs on the finite amount of time that you spend on there and what you do with that finite amount of time. The internet, in the words of someone much smarter than me, is a hustle, right? It is a hustle to trick you into thinking that you're going to get something for free by coming to my website, and I get what's known as net present value. It's about locking in the value now, getting you to sacrifice something of value today in exchange for a promise. And if you can deal in these promises and keep dishing out these hopes and dreams to people, well, you're rich, right? Because they're giving you upfront net present value on deposit. And you can just take that away and you can get rich. And so absolutely what Jamie is saying, the reason you get into politics is either because you actually want to change things, or it's because you want to keep an eye on the system. You want to see, right, I've got some land here, I've got some interest to keep an eye on. If anything starts to change, let me finish this point. Please let me finish this point. When I start to see something change, I either want to cut on this new system or I want to make this as difficult as possible. So what I think they want is they want that cut. They want to know that when this new technology gets through, I want to get my feet under the table. I want to sit down there. I want to take out all this edgy stuff that gives people control, and I want to be able to control it for myself.
Yeah, but we know that they're not going to be able to do that. The old rules don't apply, and yeah, like a set of gamblers at the table, and But today, I really hope that the potential of this technology. There is governments around the world that are using it. There's people that are using it, and that regardless of what decisions are made in Capitol Hill in America or in London, it's still going to keep rolling, and this technology is still going to be going. And what are the benefits? We still haven't really answered the question. We still haven't said, because we all feel passionate about the issue. We know that they keep playing at this kind of stuff the bad way, and that's what this show's about. This show's about what is the right implementation. Do we have a regulatory body in the UK? I wish I could rock down to HSBC and say, I want to put my Bitcoin in.
The thing is, the regulation is in the protocol and the community. It's happening right now on GitHub when Gavin Andresen makes an announcement of a feature change.
There we go. Then today, tell us what's happening about that then, Chris, because the people in Capitol Hill or in Downing Street don't know about that stuff, and they don't live our life, and they are disconnected. And I think you're right. I understand your passionate energy about it, and I understand that the mistakes many a government, but we're talking today on what is the right usage, what is the right because this is different about money creation. We spoke about money creation and fractional reserve banking.
I think this is more to do about how the capitulation process is going to happen. So the people that have got used to a certain living standard, that have got used to a certain income, are suddenly going to find that their jobs are going. And deeply, deeply ironic, isn't it, that high finance has never been shy of automation of industries before, like when the coal mines got shut down, like the automation of factory workers offshoring stuff to places like India and China. They were never worried before about automation, but now they're about to get automated, and suddenly you've got this very poetic kind of Greek tragedy on the horizon, where they're going to have to make a decision. Do we want this transition to be a smooth and peaceful one and say, okay, it was good for a while, but now we're going to have to step down because it looks like we've just been automated in a few hundred lines of C++? Or are they going to say, no, we're going to fight this tooth and nail, we're going to start arresting people, we're going to do what we did on Hong Kong and have a bit of a standoff? Because remember that this is like I used the quote at the Fossa conference, civilization is a race between education and catastrophe. This is not a choice. It came along because it was born out of necessity. You can't have databases that don't accurately describe the underlying nature of reality. If your database doesn't describe the world beneath it, what's the point? Why should I invest in this database? Why should I give it my time, give it more data, if it doesn't actually represent the world? As in, if you go and lend a bunch of money out to people that can't afford to pay it back, and then you print $16 trillion because it's like, whoops, I made a mistake, let's rub it out and pretend like it never happened, the universe is going to turn around to you and go, it doesn't work like that. Like, those $16 trillion that you just printed over a year's worth of GDP in the US, they don't really exist. And it's just going to rain inflation on everyone else. So they have to adapt, they have to change. But I don't believe in the sincerity of these questions that are being posed. I think the reason they're asking us this is because they want to get elected next year and they want to look relevant.
I was going to say, Chris, some really good points there, and I'd like to, if we got a resident Tibetan monk, is it? What would be your comment, my friend, on this?
From Thailand. Ajahn, are you there?
How do governments use this new technology? What can they do? Because, I would love to see it used in stocks. I would love to be seeing it used in a whole myriad of technologies. And I hope you're wrong, Chris. But I got a feeling that you're more right than I'd probably led to believe.
The problem is it breaks that model, because what you want to do, what you want to do is, okay, ever since agriculture, the whole damn civilization has been embroiled in this scam. And the scam is make other people do the work for you. And the best way to do that is to not play any game unless you know you can cheat ahead of time. But in order for that strategy to work effectively and sustainably, you need to scare everyone else into playing by the rules. So you end up with two tiers in society: the people that won't play unless they can cheat, and everyone else who plays by the rules. Now, the next thing your next move has to be, you've got to control the justice system, because if it's free, if anyone can hire a lawyer and it doesn't cost them anything, then anyone can get their disputes resolved. And if you've got justice going on everywhere, then you're not going to be powerful for very long. So the lawyers need to charge fees, lots and lots of money, so that you get access to the justice system if you're very powerful and you've got lots of money. But if not, you're left to kind of argue over your disputes and enter into informal agreements with people, and you haven't got stable binding contracts. And that's actually where most of the world spends its time, in what's called System D, or the shadow economy. So the problem now is that with a distributed database, which is what Bitcoin is, it's a distributed timestamp server. Go read the original paper, it's right there in the introduction. Satoshi's claim was, we need to come up with a system where everyone plays by the same rules, right, when no one has the ability to change them. And it will be based on our common understanding and belief in mathematics that will bring everyone together, because no one can cheat the computation. And so he said nodes should be able to join and leave the network at will, while still trusting that the system can operate as expected whilst they look the other way. So I can go to bed at night, wake up in the morning, and I don't have to worry about whether the Bitcoin system broke down. Einstein had a similar thought. He said God doesn't play dice, in response to Niels Bohr and the quantum physicists. He was saying that when I go to bed, the moon doesn't disappear. The moon exists whether or not I'm there to look at it. And it's the same kind of system that Satoshi was proposing. That's a category different to the type of centralized database that Facebook, Google, the banks operate, because they've got root level access. They can see all your emails, they can see everything that's going on inside of these databases, and if you can see all the inbound payments, if you're running a stock market, you mentioned stocks there, Shem, Well, you don't want a system where everyone's got the same access to it, because that takes away your edge. That takes away your house edge. You can't start manipulating things. You can't manipulate LIBOR. How would Barclays have manipulated LIBOR if everyone had access to the same information? How does that even work?
It wouldn't work.
You're not running charities. These people aren't turning up to Wall Street and Canary Wharf because they just want to work like for charity. They're there to make big money. They're there to exploit the differences between people. They're there to make money so that other people can't. It's no good saying everyone gets to make money, because if everyone makes money, then no one has any money. You're there to make more money. So if you're running a big pharma, if you're running big pharmaceuticals, right, and you know that you've got all these serious pain points, people are suffering all over the world, and let's say your mate's got a mansion and you don't, but you've got like some nice places, then what you're thinking to yourself as the boss of that company is, I need that mansion, I need to compete with him, because you're always local, you're always where you are, your eyes are in your head, fundamental attribution error in psychology, you're always looking out from a center, you want to get that mansion. So you say, well, how much should I charge for this AIDS drug? Well, how much to get the new mansion? What do I need to make out of this? Here's your pain points. And people are suffering, they're getting near death. They'll pay anything to keep themselves alive, right? Because you can't take it with you. So he thinks to himself, right, well, if I need to make, 100 million out of this, then let's call it 150, 200 to be safe, and then I'll dictate the price, and then I'll give it to my line manager down below me, and he can kick it down to him, and he can kick it down to him. But by the time all these middlemen have taken their fees, so he gets his mansion, the next guy below him wants a Maserati, so he makes sure that he can get himself a bit of a margin there. He keeps kicking it down until eventually you get down to the bottom, and the person at the bottom, of course, doesn't have access to justice, doesn't have access to the information in the market system, because these are all silos, these are all like closed sources of information, so he just has to pay it because he's about to die. What you're doing by making money is making sure that everyone else is exposed to the volatility of nature. You want to leave them at the disposal of risks of day-to-day living, and you want to lock in the profit for yourself because you're scared. Life is a struggle. It's a very scary thing to not know whether or not you're going to have that swimming pool, or whether or not you're going to have that Maserati. But if you can get away with it, why not?
Well, this is the thing. I think you're right there, Chris, because some of the old games are not going to work with this kind of technology. It's going to rewrite and write those out of the equation. One of the main barriers to cybersecurity for business holdings and kind of the usage of Bitcoin is, it's no secret that when you become your own bank, which Bitcoin makes happen by you owning and holding your own Bitcoins, you've got to take responsibility for that, and a lot of the public are not ready, and I think that the government's got to get involved. Now, this is the conversation, you're right, we've covered the subject over the last 10 minutes about the misuse of governments with innovative technologies, and is this going to happen again? Yes, it's happening again. Are we hoping that governments are not going to do that? No. We hope that they use this as a chance, because it's like the internet. The internet has added billions upon billions worth of pounds to the economy, and it's laid it old.
Jamie, what do you want to jump in a second?
I have a suggestion. Okay, right now everything the government does is backed by law, which is a threat of force. They will come to your house and kill you if necessary if you do not agree with them and do not follow that law. If they want to regulate Bitcoin, make it a certification process that is voluntary. Say, okay, we have these standards. If you want to be certified, you can voluntarily get certified by us that you adhere to these standards, but it is completely voluntary. You do not have to, it's not a law, it is a certification. Just like if I were to say, my company certifies other companies that are Bitcoin compliant. You are Jamie Nelson compliant.
Yeah, I see that.
Should we go through the questions? Oh, I was just saying, should we go through the questions again to get kind of back on track? So I've got the screen share here of the questions, and we've answered some, but we've gone because they're not, the questions the way that they're ordered are not really in the best.
Go to question 6, because this
that's a very good one. I noticed it too. Hold on. What risks do digital currencies pose to users? How significant are these risks? How do these risks vary according to different digital currencies? Okay, well, there's a lot of risks. The main risk is total loss, in that you lose your private key and you don't have a backup, or somebody steals your private key somehow. That's a pretty significant risk.
Yeah.
How do these risks vary according to different digital currencies? Well, all of them have that feature that I just said. What do you guys think? What are some other risks?
I think this is a perfect example of why the regulation exists already in the code, because we've already got a working model that's being implemented right now. It's called multi-signature wallets, and the way it's going to work, similar to BitPay's CoPay website, which is still very buggy, but it works as well enough, which is where you need 2 out of 3 signatures, as an example, in order to make a payment from a wallet. So you give one signature to the bank or BitPay or whoever, the custodian of the funds. You keep one copy live on your computer, and then you keep another paper backup, or you give it to a friend or someone that you trust, a family member. And what that means is that all the bank is there for is to be a custodian of one of the backup keys. If the bank goes down and they suffer systemic collapse, it's okay. Everyone's still got their money because you've got the paper backup with the live copy on your browser. But at the same time, if your browser gets compromised, the thief still doesn't have the second signature that they need. They either need access to your paper wallet or they need access to BitPay. So this is the way that things should be done, because that way the banks aren't lending you money. Well, they're not lending money out anyway, let's face it. But the theory is that they're supposed to take your money on deposit and they're supposed to lend it out. But for every pound that you have or every dollar you have, someone somewhere is paying interest on it. Now, that is true, but it's not true for the right reasons. The problem is that what the areas of the economy that require investment from the banks often don't end up with that investment. For example, right now it would be great if banks were lending to businesses, but they're not. Why not? They're not because if the business fails, they have nothing to show for it. They've got no what's called principal. Whereas if they lend money to homeowners, if the homeowners can't pay, they get the house. And of course, land is not a speculative investment. We're always going to need to exist somewhere. We're always going to need shelter from nature. So what you do is you go after the investments as a bank. Your business model naturally tends towards this parasitical nature where you're going to always want to invest in hard assets that you know will keep their value over time, whilst offsetting the risk onto everyone else. Now, try telling that to Barclays. Try telling Barclays that from now on, you're just going to be a custodian, a depository, nothing more than a backup service of data. And actually, you can't even charge fees because the fees are dictated by the miners. So unless you go off and invest in lots of mining hardware, you're not getting any of that either. And then when you tell them that this is all entirely voluntary and that actually they can withdraw their funds and change accounts anytime they like, they're not going to like that very much either.
No, they're not going to. I don't think they're going to go for that.
No.
I have a bad feeling.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it, that we're asking for a bank in a perfect situation with the Bitcoin technology. They would help protect it and be a custodian. You know,
like they don't understand the code. Remember the balances of power. Maybe we need to back up and explain this a bit better. Right now, the asset ledgers, the ledger, is made of the same particles that the universe is made of. Its legitimacy as to the claims, all law is at the moment is a cacophony of competing claims. It's my term, right? But lawyers would have agreed with me when I've said it to you. You've got lots and lots of different actors all disagreeing and claiming that they have certain ownership rights. The problem is that your ability to exercise those rights is entirely a function of your resource availability. In other words, who gives a fuck about the ledger unless you've got the lawyers to back it up and fight it in court? The reason why the bank can come and take your house is because they've got police officers at their disposal, bailiffs at their disposal that can come around and kick you out if they absolutely need to. That's why the contract exists and has authority in the first place. That's what you're saying.
Chris, this is what we're talking about, though, that the blockchain technology has the ability to be able to be programmable contracts. And the fact is that this old echelon of systems is under threat from the new innovation of programmable, cryptographically secure trust.
Yes, because they can't cheat like they used to.
Well, this is the thing.
Right.
So any ministers out there, they need to understand that this blockchain technology, because it's cryptographically secure, trust. You can say, Chris has rented this car, Chris has bought this stock, Jamie has bought this stock, he owns it, it's non-counterfeitable. The old rules don't apply with this. And I actually believe that any decent banker, any decent entrepreneur worth their salt, or politician would, once they understand the fact that this cryptographically secure trust, which is the true promise of, sorry, I say it with such effigy, because the fact is that we don't have any decent trust within the system. So be it the court system, as you say, Chris, or be it, the misuse of trust, the heralding benefits of cryptographically secure trust
that
and
makes them
blockchain.
obsolete, though, Shell.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
They have absolutely no function then.
Their species is dying out.
Hold on. Let's.
Dying out.
They're asking about this. Now let's check it out. So I've got the. They're not. They're asking. They're not asking exactly about it, of course, but I think they're kind of going in a weird way. I mean, it has question 7 and 8 could have been merged. Basically, it just says, should the government intervene to address these risks or maintain the status quo? And then 8 goes on to say, should the government regulate? Basically, I mean, what are the advantages, disadvantages? Should they use existing regulations? Should they make special ones? Compliance, blah blah blah. Well, all right. Probably they shouldn't intervene, and I don't know how they would want to intervene.
Yeah, they can't intervene.
And that's the thing that they have to kind of understand. You can't just stop it. It won't work.
They can't stop this. It's already out.
What you can do, if you're, let's just say you're a statist and you wanna, you like government and all that, just take a look at countries that have tried to ban it or whatever. It just doesn't work.
Yeah,
you're not going to be able to. So let's go jump down, because we were talking about how dishonest, some of these industries are. Well, 3.2 is crime. That's the topic, and they're asking about crime. Of course, everyone thinks Bitcoin, purchase of illegal goods and services, fraud, anonymous extortion, money laundering, terror financing. Okay, wait a minute. Is this about Bitcoin or the banking system we have right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I could just put change out, cryptocurrencies and put current banking system, and they would have all of these things would be there, and they would be there really big. So let's go down here. Question 9. What are the crime risks associated with digital currencies? Well, digital currencies aren't inherently associated with crime, so I don't know really.
Well, the dollar is.
All right, guys, hold on. We're in a mudslinging match against fiat, and we all know what team we support. Don't worry.
Yeah, but no, I'm trying to be really neutral.
I've never seen anybody snort coke with a Bitcoin.
Okay, well you could with the paper wallet. Yeah, a paper wallet. Now really, I'm really trying to be neutral. Now come on, everybody knows that. What was it? HSBC or whatever. I mean, they've been in the news for supporting terrorists. They got terrorists, right? For taking money laundering. I mean, come on, Switzerland or I don't know, Luxembourg or whatever other country. I mean, it happens all the time. What, Isle of Man? What is that?
Well, this is what we're saying, guys. The government should definitely view the whole Bitcoin ecosystem in a similar fashion to the early days of the internet. Of course, they're saying terrorists and drugs buying things illegally on the internet. It's what they're going to be looking at as it comes to the shore first for their world. But it's difficult for us. It's difficult for them because it's an early ecosystem.
Okay, well, let's just take it. Well, then let's go really.
They're framing the word illegal too.
Okay, well,
money laundering. What's that?
Well, okay, look.
Think about
fractional reserve banking.
Yeah, the banks do it already.
Their own money.
Right. Money laundering is when I have dollars in my pocket and my pants go in the laundry. No, I'm just joking. No, I'm just joking. What I mean is that let's do it from a real pragmatic point of view. If I'm a criminal and I want to buy something illegal, and I use Bitcoin, I have in a lot of cases I have a bigger risk of getting caught and my funds being tracked as when I use fiat cash. Let's be honest about that. And that goes for terrorists too, and they know that. So all of this stuff is just hyperbole about, a lot of these things. Okay, it is, easy to send it across the countries and so on, but Come
Yeah.
on. So we have to put that in perspective, I think. You know, how significant is the risk? Well, in comparison to what? In comparison to the current system, it's a much better way to use blockchain technology and much easier to track than, you know, this cash that you just print unlimitedly and terrorists run around with, you know, bags of it. No, let's be honest. Everyone knows that's what's going on.
It's not the risk of the consumer they're worried about. It's the risk to them.
Yeah. Well, guys, let's break it down real small nugget bites. You know, newsflash for any of you decision makers out there. There's this new money where they don't need to tell you what they're doing when they buy stuff with it. You know, and it's happening, and you can't be able to stop it, mate. Sorry.
That's true. So should the government intervene to address these risks or maintain the status quo? What are the outcomes of taking no action? Well, no, but
Mr. Government, I'm afraid that you can't really do nothing because people are going to be taking money out and doing whatever they want.
Oh, I got it. No, better. What are the outcomes of taking no action? You're not elected again. You lose your. So maybe that's so. If you want to hire me as a political consultant, I mean, I'm American. We're pretty good at politics, so you know, just you know, hit me up on.
Actually, look at what Congress in America has done. They had an 11% approval rating, and they were 99 or 90% reelected. So if you do nothing, you have a better chance of being reelected.
Yes, that's correct. The problem is that politics is not the appropriate tool for dealing with this because it's not fundamentally a political problem. The problem is that most people don't pay attention to politicians. They deliberately try to be as boring as possible so that they numb you, so that you'd rather watch EastEnders or whatever's on TV, or you know, whoever's got talent. Someone apparently has always got talent, so you've got to watch that talent show at a weekend, and you'll take your booze and you'll smoke your cigarettes and you get on with your life. You don't pay attention. That's how they want it. It was a really good tweet earlier on. In fact, why don't I load that up in the background? But what I was going to say here at this point is they're asking me to do free work for them, to give them advice on stuff. I have been told that I'm not allowed to know who the decision maker is. So I was told by the UK DCA, I asked Paul there, and they've been, UK DCA has been an absolute troll. They've been like telling me to like go to their meetings and stuff. I go to their meetings and it's just a bunch of self-interested people all trying to push an agenda in the meeting, and it's like you're not having an honest conversation. So I stopped going. It cost me 20 quid to get in and out of London every day. I'm not doing that. So I was wasting my time. And so Paul's like, well, I said to Paul, okay, who is this that you've been talking to at HMRC in the government? And he's like, I can't tell you. It's like, well, why can't you tell me? And it's like, well, if you look this person up, you know, on LinkedIn, you look up this keyword search, you'll find out. And it's like, well, why can't you just be straight with me? Why is it all this cloak and dagger, like, you know, backroom deals and cartels and in-groups? Like, why don't you just be straight up, honest, transparent, like, who's the decision maker? Let me sit down with a coffee and maybe I'll change my mind once I've spoken to somebody there. But if all you're going to do is give me low-level assistance and people on phones sort of asking me, well, so what do you think this blockchain is? Do you think? Because really what that guy was asking me, the first question I did, and I spent a good hour and maybe more than that on the phone to this chap, who was very bright, intelligent anthropologist by background, by training, and he was sort of saying, so do you think, what he really wanted to know from me is, does this pose a threat to the pound? Because as soon as I said this poses no threat to the pound as long as government behaves honestly, it was like, oh, okay, cool, that's what my boss wants to hear, right? But I said to him, like, actually, you know, you're not thinking big picture. This is actually about a distributed database that you can't go and rub out if it's inconvenient for your agenda. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's so true. Yeah, you're right. And he was like, yeah, because that's funny because somebody else said that to me as well. And I remember him saying that. Then he goes off, he publishes this report, or it's under Caroline Kenny's name, and it doesn't include anything about the distributed database. And it's like, well, if you look, Ethereum are claiming they're going to launch in spring next year. If they do, by the time that you get this into the House of Commons, you're going to be way behind the curve. So I think actually the best thing that they can do... Yeah,
look at Factome.
The best thing... Have you
seen Factome? That's a big database thing that's implementing on the blockchain.
Yeah. But the best thing that they can do, absolutely, projects like that are going to be massively disruptive for them. The best thing they can do is give everyone the tools they need to get their daily daily chores met, right? Get their duties met. They need to devolve power at the local level and let everyone take part in the governing process, not by voting every 4 and 5 years. Because when you're voting, you're giving away your power. I don't disagree with polling necessarily. I absolutely agree there should be a feedback mechanism, but that feedback mechanism needs to be local. It needs to be iterative. The people that are voting need to be enfranchised. They need to be invested in the decision they're making, not just like you got 3 choices and they're all the same shade of shit. It's like, well, that's not really voting then. It's tyranny of the majority. You're not really deciding anything. It's just theater.
Well, then why aren't you running for election then, Chris?
Oh, yeah, because that's right. You can change from the inside.
Right. You have to,
hold on.
to change from inside.
Because the system doesn't work like that. The system is designed to be changed.
Hold on, guys. Chris, excellent point there you just say, mate. And this is one of the things, any viewers out there, is that these new cryptographically secure trust-enabled blockchains are going to be able to do things like voting that will be fair. And this is what these technologies represent. They are technologies of decentralization. So they do change governance. They do change the traditional systems that we've got. And you're right. I understand that real apathy and of big fat bureaucratic movements and organizations that they've lost that innovative touch. It's about box ticking and stuff like that. It's our hope today in this show that we've echoed and talked about some of the innovative potentials of the blockchain and Bitcoin technology when used. Because what have we already said? Guys, I noticed that you said we want to be able to just use the Bitcoin without hindrance of legislation. We don't want them. We know that because of this technology, it changes fundamentally a lot of the systems that the very system that's asking for advice is dependent on. And yes, many MPs don't understand that application to their downfall, and to, you know, they'll be known in history as the guys that didn't catch on to the big elephant in the room.
Well, basically, I want to use Bitcoin where I can buy something or I can make a database entry and not be treated as a scum criminal, because when I'm doing this, there is no victim. I believe if there's a crime, there should be a victim, and government can't be a victim.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Well, what I would suggest that the government does is they go over to GitHub/Bitcoin and go up to the fork button up here and fork the damn project if they want to have a say, and get involved in the code. Put in a pull request, say, right, here's the legislation I'd like you to put through. Here's the code. Now go put this on the testnet and I'll prove to you why it's better. Otherwise, just fork it and create UK GovCoin. And let them create their own currency.
No, don't do that, because fucking it doesn't. Listen, Mr. MP out there or anything, you ain't gonna be changing the Bitcoin. It's coming to your shores. It's fucking already at the beach, buddy. And listen, you need to get on the trip. Anyone out there? We've talked about the application in stocks and shares and voting and so on and so forth. The old games don't apply with this. Now, it's easy for us to all sit here. We ain't tied to no organisation. Our thoughts are our own. We're free individuals, so we're saying what we think. But there's another 10,000 people that didn't get the chance to be on a show and say their opinions. So for anyone, MPs out, decision makers, entrepreneurs, I hope they either listen to this, watch this show, because I hope they don't be turned off by a harsh cynicism. Cynicism,
yeah.
You know, because we know that we're fucking innovators. We ain't interested in fucking slow, fat, movable things that get washed out through evolution, baby. This is evolution in action, and we're at the crest of the wave. So you better catch up.
Well, it's just truth, isn't it? We just love the truth, and the thing is, like, if I see something,
we still haven't had a comment from our fucking Buddhist rep. Can we get a comment in? And we need someone to frame this.
Well, he sometimes has background noise. That's usually why he doesn't.
All right. Well, background noise from Tibet still counts.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yay! Yeah, we can. Yeah. How you doing?
Okay.
Right.
How you doing?
Yeah,
John?
I want to, Chris, a quick question. The person that contacted you at the first, I understand you gave your time freely, but I would suggest that they just go and watch Andrews's talk at the Canadian Senate and say, when you've watched that, come back with your questions, because the Canadian Senate done things right. They got a top bloke in. I presume Andres was paid, or at least had his expenses covered. Now, if the government are serious and talking to anybody else in the community, first thing they should do is watch that video from Andreas, and there's a few other very good talks from Andreas, and I think Jeffrey Tucker and people like that. But if they spent 8 hours in a room and watched some videos from these speakers, they wouldn't need to ask stupid questions. And people like you could then focus on, I'd say, all right, questions that are serious, like you say, about the code and stuff. Because every question that Theo was showing on his paperwork there, these questions have been asked ad infinitum all over the net. So if the government were serious, then they would be looking at these videos and then framing their questions properly to people that know the answers. This is window dressing. They already know what they want to do with this.
Yes.
And I know she's trying to be nice and neutral. Listen, mate, it's the government. There is no neutral. You know, they want to keep their jobs, and you want to go and defund them, and they won't be happy. And without taxes and their fiat money and their banking system and the courts and things like that, then it doesn't apply. So the Bitcoin community, if the government want to regulate it, who's qualified? I heard Andreas Antonopoulos say the other day in a talk that he doesn't fully understand Bitcoin and its potential. Well, if the government's got somebody more qualified than Andreas, bring him out. Let's hear him. Let's get him on the show.
Well, there are lots of qualified people, but they're few and far between. I speculate less than 1,000 people globally are qualified in cryptocurrency, because it not only requires programming skills, it also requires knowledge of cryptography and cryptology, which is both of which are fairly niche, but most of all because cryptography is fairly niche, and you need economics, basic understanding of economics, and you need to know about good database design.
Government ministers, I mean, look at their history for economics. They can't even regulate their own system. Just look back at what they've done in the last 50, 60 years with their own system. And we've got a system that's growing, that's open to everybody, it's unregulated. Why would you invite somebody that's made I need to watch my language here, that's made a total mess of their own system, and say, please come and mess with ours and oversee it? That is absolutely crazy.
The children of tomorrow, we ain't letting that happen. And the Bitcoin's coming along, and the old system ain't gonna. And we're coming for them, man. We're coming for fiat, and the innovation's at their doorstep. And they've got two choices. They can fight it as much as they want, because it's not like they can't track it, they can't trace it. You know, and someone left a comment earlier saying, is it to do with the CIA? No, man, Bitcoin didn't make CIA. All right, the NSA talked about it in the late 90s or something similar to it. But no, this isn't a pet project of the NSA or CIA. It's way out of their hands. It's coming to innovate their own system, their own financial Western monetary system. And this is what a lot of people ain't picking up on, and that we've all spoken about and we feel strongly about, because we know governments lie. Governments print more money. This ain't going to happen with this technology. That's why we're in on the boat.
This is to answer John's point. This is the reason why things don't get done. It's because when they're debating the war in Afghanistan, no one turns up. When they're debating child sex abuse, no one turns up. When they're debating living wage, no one turns up. But when they're debating how much they should get paid for their expenses, everyone turns up. When they debate their own pay, everyone turns up. The fact is, they don't care about people like us. They're there to protect their own interests. They're not there for you and me. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, exactly. They're not there. I'm sorry to break it to you, but the reason politicians lie is because they're there to make sure that they're okay. They're not there to see that you're okay. They're there to keep an eye on the system to make sure.
Politicians are there to protect the government.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's
the government will look after the politicians.
No, that's breaking news, guys. That's breaking news to some people's worlds out there. So let's just carry that. We want all you guys to know that us at Crypto News Network, we want you to enjoy your life. We want you to become a thorough member of society. And Tim Leary was right. Drop out, tune in, turn on. Bitcoin's coming.
Are you Russell Brand?
Me?
Yeah. You sound just like Russell Brand.
Oh my
I
god.
thought he sounded more like Amir. I thought that's why he's sitting in the dark.
No, it's like I was
Amir
trying to
is
work
ringer.
out who he sounded like the whole way through this show, and I was like, he's Russell Brand.
Are you writing the scripts for Russell Brand?
I could be. I haven't even just got started, man. It's Saturday night, man. The viewers want prime time, man.
Oh man,
Anyway,
you could well be.
let's
You
not
sound.
mention the UK British
I know it's
pedophile scandal. Let's not mention the countless wars that are going on. Today, we're here to give you some advice about how you can use the blockchain innovative technology to make the world a better place.
Hey, if any of those MPs,
I can vouch for Shem.
I would
Well, I've
say
never seen him
I know he's
before.
not
I've only
Russell
ever seen
Brand.
an avatar. Never seen a picture of him. So.
Jamie, have you seen Russell Brand and Shem in the same room at
No.
the same time?
I haven't seen him in the same room, but I have seen Shem. I've talked to him. So
let's
I'm
go to
quite
the
certain
Q&A.
he's not Russell Brand.
Let's go to the Q&A. So Isaac is saying, are you forgetting that we have humans living on space stations in space? Of course they know all about this tech. Yeah, no doubt that they do. The thing is that I'm learning how to code again after like 15 years of absence from that, and I have started to go through with someone who's extremely knowledgeable about the software, and I've been going through the code myself. I also know a lot of people that I trust that are very knowledgeable about it. The thing is that everyone's executing the same code, right? So for those of us who do use Linux and do know how to work their way through a command line, I kind of know what it's doing to the processor on my machine. The processor is just a counter with a memory attached to it. Okay, it has the ability to receive an input, compute the input, and produce an output. That's it. That's all it does. At its most basic level, that's what a computer is. It's like an abacus, but digital, and it can do it really, 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 really quickly. And so when I look at the code, I know what's being executed on my machine because I'm compiling the Qt client myself on my machine, and I know what it's going to do. I know how the Merkle tree is formed with the hash table, and so I can see that what I'm downloading is the truth because lots of other people over space and time are agreeing with me. Is it possible that they could be pulling some kind of Cartesian trick on us, that we could just be brains in a vat and they're just plugging in like the Matrix and giving us this hologram? Absolutely it could, but that still doesn't undermine the nature of reality itself, because it's real as long as I can interact with it. I don't need to believe in this phone to start using it. I just use the damn thing, yeah? So you don't always, belief is not necessarily a requirement before you start interacting with the world in a way that makes sense, in a way that I can talk about and say, did you see that big transaction that went over the blockchain the other day? And everyone can say yes, because they've got the same perspective that I have. They just gone to blockchain.info or BitPay's Insight website, you see. So yes, I do get that they get this tech, but I've looked at the code, or I'm currently going through all the code, and I believe that it works. I don't think that they're going to be able to. This undermines their power.
However, we understand that the fractional reserve banking Western global monetary system doesn't work, and we believe that it keeps going through these boom and bust ecosystems, and the inherent system that underlines the whole governance of planet Earth derived from the Western society is fucked. And the reason we believe that is because of what we know from the facts. So the way that ecological devastation across planet Earth, the countless misery and financial instability of monetary across human beings across the world, and the amount of unhappiness is that we can definitely arrive at our prognosis of saying that today on Saturday the 29th of the 11th 2014 the world is fucked. But here at Crypto News Network, we hope to give you guys some insight.
Yeah, rock on. Okay, next question from Gabriel Vine. The blockchain is not a magic removal of the power of violence force in society. Remember that even smart contracts will need to be enforced. Thoughts? That's absolutely correct. It's been an idea that's been plaguing me for some time now, and it's come up a lot in the Ethereum. So it wasn't you that was groaning, Theo. I think it was Shem that was groaning as I was talking. So Gabriel is saying, stop groaning when I was talking.
I didn't do anything. You know?
No, you didn't. I think he's talking about Shem. Anyway. So yeah, the problem is it's all very well having your contract on the blockchain, of course, But if you still require an intermediary to come along and say, well, you know, this is how you should proceed into the future, I think that it should rest with you, then of course there's no point. If someone just turns up with a bigger tank than you or turns up with a gun, doesn't matter what your blockchain says. That's absolutely correct. This is going to be a long learning process for everyone, because everyone's at very different stages of their understanding of this technology. A lot of people don't even know why they should learn about it at the moment. I think the biggest obstacle to Bitcoin success isn't even governments, actually. It's just members of the public. Because remember that the people aren't incentivized to keep the status quo, the power structures in place, if the power structures are stealing from them and not even playing by their own rules, right? So as soon as the public starts, well, I think the public are already broadly aware of the fact that their governments and banks and systems corrupt. They just don't have anything better to replace it with yet. And they kind of heard about Bitcoin and they've seen it in the news, but remember, they're not getting in the thick of it like we are. They're not really entrenched in this. I think they're still waiting for us, the demos, the people.
Most people just see Bitcoin as a coin, a digital coin. They don't understand the...
But guys, can I be honest? I mean, you know, we haven't really stated what everyone should be expecting, because, you know, we're in, what would Marshall McLuhan say about today? You know, this age of decentralized money, smart money. I remember him saying in like Tomorrow's World, like 1998, in the future they have this money that you'll be able to program and it can do anything.
Is that Marshall McLuhan that said that?
Well,
I mean, he coined the term global village.
That, Marshall McLuhan. Yeah. You know, what would these guys say? Because we are in the days of decentralization, the internet, you know, communications from free. I think this is going to be like what downloading was for the music industry, but for the banking system.
Well, remember that the blockchain is the internet. So people keep saying this is the next internet. It's not. It's just what the internet is evolving into, because in many ways the Bitcoin as a protocol is actually an improvement on TCP. It was a way of being able to communicate diff, often abbreviated to in programming terms, over space and time, such that there's virtually no latency. So everyone gets access to the same information at approximately the same time, or at least at intervals that are so brief you haven't got time to act on them to gain any kind of a strategic advantage. So that was the whole point. The internet was a global database of memory, of lots of hard drives that could interconnect with each other. And what that did is it allowed for entities to exist without a stable spatial referent. It didn't have to exist out there in space anymore. It could reside on a hard drive, and because you had all of these interwoven protocols on top which dealt with all the nomenclatures of each protocol on the way down, as far as you were concerned, you put in bbc.co.uk and you got the BBC website. All the hard work was done for you. It took you directly to that server that was able to serve up the same news that everyone else was getting. And as a result, it created this simultaneity across the universe, across the world, potentially across the universe, of course. And what it means is that memes start to get created. What gets looked at on the internet is looked at based on its merit, not based on just being in the right place at the right time. Your strength is no longer an accident arising from circumstance, right? That's the key thing, because that's, in the past, whenever you've seen big shifts in hegemonies, in power structures, it's usually, well, which one of you two competing kings understands the underlying nature of reality? In the old days, being physically strong and being present somewhere was a strategic advantage, but it's not anymore, because a lot of the challenges that we're facing now don't require you to be strong. We've got machines for that. Now it requires you to be intelligent. Now it's the creativity that we need from the human consciousness, and it's no longer a necessary thing to just be born into the right family or whatever. Ideas can come from anywhere, and we need to decide whose ideas get to be validated, whose ideas get to be brought into the material reality of the universe, who gets the money, the land, the food, the guns, who gets that shit, on the assumption that the idea for that, you know, cure for Ebola could come from the slums of Rio. But we'll never find out if we're not giving those people everything they need to sustain their lives peacefully and manage their agreements with each other peacefully and allow them to achieve their goals peacefully. So yeah, you're right, it's still a pinching point. We still need everyone to agree. Now, you could end up with mutually assured destruction. That is, everyone joins the blockchain and everyone honors the contracts within the blockchain once we get the protocols sorted out on how we should, be doing these contracts. Ethereum would like you to do it in Python and well, Serpent, whatever they've called it, and they've got a version on Go as well. But I don't think that's going to work, because the problem is that not everyone knows how to code, and you're not going to get everyone learning that, so you're still going to rely on a middleman like a programmer. So I think it might end up having to be done in something like a data interchange format like JSON or XML. And yeah, for stuff that you want to automate, you could build some macros, like if it's just a case of putting my Bitcoin address on all my copyrighted material so that every time you go off and use my photograph or use one of my videos, it automatically tips me. Sure, I think that will come in very handy. But I don't know that you need, like Ethereum are claiming that you need this global Turing complete supercomputer, this sort of distributed computer is what they're creating, so that the blockchain isn't just a database that's over space and time, it's actually a computational engine. You're inside of a big network computer, and once you issue this contract, and it's a smart contract, it becomes autonomous. That means if you put a time function in there to say, like, there's 10 Bitcoins in this wallet, and upon 60 years later, maybe it's like your inheritance or something, it automatically pays someone. Once that goes out there, you can't stop it, right? So I think we do need to be careful about how we issue these contracts, because if you're going to put absolute terms in there, strict liability terms in there, where they execute whether you like it or not, we're going to have to think very, very hard about how we frame the protocol so that people go in with their eyes open and they know what they're doing. So yeah, you're right. It is going to be a sociological enterprise as well, not just a technological one.
And this is the thing, I think you're quite right there. We're in an age of new technological innovation, and this is what it's about. I mean, if only the government was to quit its implementation of fractional reserve 20th century money, and allow this smart money. I mean, if they try to lock consumer and business usage, people are going to take their coins elsewhere. One of the main barriers to cybersecurity is problems with business holdings, the dealings and the usage of Bitcoin. We want the government to free this up. This new promise of distributed trust-based ledger tech, smart contracts, programmable money. When it's applied to finance, communications, governance, the world's the limit. And this is what this promise heralds, I believe.
Anyone else?
Well, right now it's the holiday season again, and last year and, well, throughout the year, we just saw tons and tons of cybersecurity breaches where credit card company and bank after bank were being hacked, and user data was being stolen by hackers. With Bitcoin, with everybody having their own key, that's the being decentralized. There's not one big database of usernames and passwords that people can hack into. So that makes it more inherently, that makes it more secure right there. So if they want to steal a bunch of Bitcoin, they got to go to each person individually and get it. They can't just break into Target's database or, to Citibank and get everybody's Bitcoins like they can just break into one of those HSBC or something now and get all that information. Then HSBC will say, oh shucks, somebody broke into our database, now we got to create a bunch more money. And they just, poof, out of nowhere, they get more money.
This happened a couple of weeks ago. Royal Bank of Scotland had an IT problem. That's how they couched it. But I spoke to a journalist who knew the story, and she was telling me that actually that there may have been some data loss because, of course, we don't have the capacity to remember. As humans, we have fallible memory systems. So if you're not keeping up-to-date backups as a bank and your network goes down and you restore, how do you know what was in your customers' accounts? Think about it. If you've got latency between backing up your account and activity happening on your network and your whole system fries like they did, you're kind of at the mercy of the honesty of your customer coming back to you and saying, well, I actually had 1,500 in there and I spent this to person, because they can't go through everyone's account and go to all the other counterparties and say, did you really receive this, and going off checking, because they don't have that kind of resource. Now with Bitcoin, it doesn't work like that because everyone has equal ability to transition the state of the database. It's a distributed database. with a state transition rule. You've got to have the key, the whole key, and nothing but the key in order to transition the ownership of your coins to another person. In fact, the coins don't even travel anywhere. What travels is the blockchain itself. Each block travels symmetrically over space and time, thus leveraging the viral nature of the internet and what it affords. That's why I'm saying that this isn't an add-on to the internet. It is the internet. This is what the internet is evolving into. And so, yeah, I guess, guys, we should wrap up. But, you know, just to say that I'm just really privileged to have Rusty Rockets here on the show with us, man. Like, I'm
glad. Well, we need to wrap this up in the context, and I think that's the message that we give back to the listeners, because, you know, that's the real thing that counts, is what people take away from all this information that we've been so great from you guys. And I hope it's a hope of to jump on innovation when it happens, because it's not many times in the world when there's a variable that appears that has the great chance of improving the very systems that it emerges from. And I think that's what all of us are echoing in one way or another. And that's the great promise of blockchain and Bitcoin technology, of trust that's cryptographically secure. It's, I give you this potato, you give me this, but there's no cheating in the agreement of that process. And I think that one of the main problems of planet Earth, Mr. MP listening out there, entrepreneur and business person, is the great human financial system of 2014. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a change in that system. It's come to the shores of governance. It's fucking there to change their very system. Whether they like it or not, it's happening right now without them. And we want them to come on board. We want them to see the benefit of it, to see the freedom, the fact that this new level of trust could emerge, cryptographically secured, hopefully post D-Wave computer, because we all know about that quantum computer, D-Wave. But, yeah, and I think that for me, that's the real thing, because when applied to finance, communications technology, there's a whole ecosystem that could be built that could really benefit countries, governance, communication with the population, and essentially democracy in a more truer form, which is something that our current system aspires to be towards, and this system gives. And I think that if anyone we should applaud for this show, I think we should all raise a glass for fucking good old Satoshi out there, when he wrote he wrote in his white paper and in the emails that he was pissed off with the current financial crash. And we all hear the echoes of that thundering at the financial economic door today. And this technology, you know, Bitcoin's just the beginning. It's the blockchain technology within the Bitcoin code, as you rightly say, Chris. That's down to code. There's no lying that can be done, because it's the code, it's the word, it's the semantic. You know, and if governments and entrepreneurs and businesses can see the potential of this distributed trust that could be applied to banking, communication, finance, stocks, shares. You know, you could rent a car. It's a whole new future that is on our shores today. And I think all of us agree, for World Crypto News Network and our affiliations as individuals today, we're here to echo that principle. And because we're cynical and, you know, we've been around the mill, we say it with zest and so on and so forth. But what we really mean is the change that can bring positively. And I really hope people out there that are listening to this show take note of that. And that's the real takeaway message, that this system is changing. It's going to change the old system. It's going to wash over it. It's going to make old systems obsolete. And it's here to stay. It can't be stopped. NSA can't stop it. You know, no one can stop it. It's here to stay. It's right now. It's what's happening. It's going to be the future. There's companies that are on it. It's good investment, and we want governments to get on board. We want governments to make it easy for business, no restrictions. Your fractional reserve banking is not going to work on this system, because it's a completely different system. It's decentralized, baby.
Well, so Jamie brought up all the security things, and that's all true about, you know, how people steal funds and all that, and that's totally exactly right. But not only do so-called criminals steal money directly from accounts, but we had in the European Union, where in Cyprus the government just took funds from people's accounts directly. And with
and what did that do, Theo? That made
that
everyone do Bitcoin, didn't they?
Exactly. So what that did is that a lot of people said, "Oh, it's real. They can just take your money if they want." And it's not like in some obscure country, or I don't know, a small.
It was actually proposed by the Bank of England originally, the bail-in.
Imagine that. Imagine that. So that puts so there's two levels. There's security of just your hacker or whatever trying to get your funds, and the government just saying, "Hey, give me the money. I don't care. Just give it to me now. We're bankrupt. Sorry, even though we can change zeros or whatever, we still need it for whatever reason." And what I wanted to say is that MPs, if you really want to know about Bitcoin, read the white paper and just get some Bitcoin. And if you need some Bitcoin, then just get in touch with us on Twitter, and we'll just send you some for free. I'll change tip you, or I'll just give me your address, or I don't know, and then you can just see what it is, and then I can try to steal it from you, or I don't know, whatever. You can go buy some illegal stuff on the internet, or test it out. Then, how can you regulate Bitcoin if you've never even owned any increment of it? It sounds so ridiculous, to try to do that. It's beyond belief. So no matter what you think of it, at least see what it is. At least get some, look up your own address in the blockchain and say, oh, wow, that's the transaction. That's the history. Okay, so this is how it works. Okay, now I can try to have an opinion about it. Instead of just looking from the outside and reading Wired, or I don't know I like Wired, but whatever magazines you're reading about it or whatever you're hearing, read the white paper, which is what the whole thing is based on, and then just get some and play around with it. And that's it. And if you say, well, I don't want to buy some, well, I'll give you some. I don't care. I'll just give you a little bit, and you can see what it is.
Funding government with change.
So that's right. So we're fund government with change tip. I mean, you're not paying Chris to come to these meetings, and we're doing this for free just so you can learn. So here's your free course, and on top of that, we'll even throw in a little bit of Bitcoin. That's positive. That's real positive.
Absolutely. Well, look, if you want to sponsor me to reply to these questions, you can see my Bitcoin address up here, and you can also see it in the description below. Jamie's address is in there. Please send him some tips. Theo's address is in there. Shem's address is in there. So please do send us, because these videos rely on your paying for them. So thank you very much to all those who've donated so far. As I've said before, I'll end the show by saying it again. I believe in people, not politicians or governments. Thanks very much. Make sure you have your say on Twitter, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.